All right, welcome everyone. So this is the first faculty in residence cooking workshop for residents in cooperation with WHISK. So today we're gonna have Lauren Farro cooking for you today. So what I wanted to do before I let the director of WHISK present what WHISK is, and before I let Lauren cook, is just to say a few words about why we wanted to organize this. So the idea is to organize some cooking demonstrations that you can either attend live or watch at a later time. So cooking demonstrations that we're going to record. And the idea is really to help you build your cooking skills by seeing students cook simple recipes with ingredients that are affordable, that can be purchased around campus, recipes that don't take a lot of time to cook, so that instead of always relying on DC or relying on takeout, then you can cook at home very simple recipes. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jamie Kubota, which is a professor here at San Jose State in the Department of Nutritional Science and Packaging, and she's also the director of WHISK, to tell us a little bit about what WHISK is and what's the main objectives behind the project. So take it away, Jamie.
Thank you, Etienne. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Kubota. I teach in the Department of Nutrition, Food Science, and Packaging. And this is WHISK. And what WHISK stands for is Wellness and Health-Inspired Student Kitchens. And it's a program where we offer student-led demos, cooking demonstrations, and nutrition ed events around campus. It gives our students in the nutrition department an opportunity to practice what they learn in the classroom and also provide that service to the campus community. So we're really excited to be here tonight. Lauren, one of our senior nutrition students, is going to be leading the session, and she has a group of nutrition students that will be assisting her. So if you have questions during this, you feel free to, put your questions in the chat. You can even unmute yourself and ask questions. We want this to be, really dynamic discussion and experience around food and cooking. And if you have any questions about cooking after this, you can always reach out to WHISK through our website. You can go there for additional recipes as well. We develop recipes specifically for students on campus. So we're a resource for you. And the website is sjsu.edu/WHISK if you want to find that later. We're putting that in the chat there so people can find it. Awesome. So welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here tonight and see you all cooking in the kitchen. I'll turn it over to Lauren and let Lauren get started.
Thank you, Professor. I just wanted to shoot out that the group that's working with me, Ryan, Nandini, and Alyssa, are all going to be answering questions in the chat. So if you catch their name in there, feel free to listen, look for them for your response to your questions. So as Professor Kubota mentioned, I'm Lauren. I'm a senior nutrition student. And I'm really excited to be showing off these recipes because, as we were mentioning before, right now, a lot of the egg breakfast recipes and meal planning strategies are all over the grocery store. And so we're just kind of showing how you can do it at your home as easy as possible with simple, versatile recipes, because in this, you can see right here in the pinned photo, we have several different ingredients that we kind of jumped into. And I really like one thing that I wanted to show you guys to start off is even just eggs in the microwave go pretty smoothly, and they come out fluffier than I have ever had eggs from a pan cooked by myself. So I really wanted to sort of jump right into it and maybe just show what plain eggs look like. Now, the reason as a nutrition student I'm kind of pushing eggs, whenever you get a shell, using the shell to fish out the shell is really helpful. You might poke at it with a fork, but using the eggshell actually helps really well. So back to why eggs. I really like eggs, not just for the popular opinion of protein, but they're also really high in vitamin A and vitamin D. And on top of that, like I was mentioning before, they're really versatile. So you can put just about anything in them.
Lauren, I have a quick question. So yeah, you're doing 2 eggs there, and it looks like a nice sized mug. Can you just do the eggs by themselves? Do you have to add things in, or could you just cook the eggs by themselves?
You know, I shouldn't say this, but lately I've been just doing only eggs because it's just so easy. But now for the next 3 days, I think I'm going to have vegetables in them. But they come out amazing with just the eggs themselves. In this case, where I'm going to throw vegetables in them, I'm going to salt and pepper my eggs first, just a little bit. I did notice that they came out a little bland when you don't put a little something in them. But again, that's sort of a preference thing. You can put it in after also. So once you scramble your 2 eggs really nicely, if you're doing them plain, this might be a good time to throw in some water or milk if that's what you prefer. But because I'm doing squash here and tomatoes and peppers, it can get a little liquidy. So I'm not going to do that in this case. I'm just going to throw the vegetables right in after.
So Lauren, can I ask you a question while you're putting the vegetables in the
Yes.
I was just wondering, so by the way, I forgot to say at the beginning that just to prove that Lauren's recipe works, I'm trying to do it, at least the omelette, I'll cook at the same time as she is. And I, in my fridge, only had feta and pepper, so I'm going to try that. But I was going to say, I was going to ask Lauren, what kind of ingredients do you think would work with eggs? Or if you cook with different vegetables, we have like kind of substitutes.
You know, you can put just about anything in here at the end. So as I put these in the microwave, I'll kind of talk about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this off now that I've folded everything in. I'm going to start it off for 30 seconds in my microwave on high. So as far as other vegetables and other ingredients, you could put just about any fresh vegetable. Here we just have some basic, easy to find vegetables. We have spinach, mushrooms, tomatoes, zucchini. I used squash and peppers for mine. You could use sweet potatoes, one of my favorite, or regular potatoes, but you will have to cook those beforehand because they won't cook in the microwave. But once you, like if you had them the night before, you could throw those in. So after 30 seconds, the recipe suggests to pull it out and give it a good stir. You'll notice the eggs are starting to firm up, but they're still undercooked eggs. And from here, you just throw it in for another minute. One thing that I also like is with this recipe, you can do meal planning strategies. You can put meat in there if you already have sausage or bacon, or even like lunch meat ham, you can slice up and throw in there, and it kind of bolts up the protein or the flavor, just a preference, you know. But again, you can just do it vegetables like we're doing here tonight. And then one of the strategies that we were talking about with this is 1 mug is a serving. So if you wanted to line up a whole bunch of vegetables for the week, you could take these and either, you know, cook the mugs one after another and set them in the fridge cupboard, or put them into a tortilla and wrap them up. And that's what I plan to do with these because I also already ate dinner. So I'm just going to wrap these up for tomorrow with some avocado and feta and just wrap them in some tin foil and have it for the morning. And it's kind of cool in that regard because, you know, breakfast burritos are a great way to go. So I'm going to move these, and you'll see after 1 minute, they've started to firm, but with the vegetables in there, it takes a little bit longer. So if you had just eggs today, you would probably be ready to eat those. But in this case, where you're catching a lot of moisture from the vegetables, I'm going to put it back in for 30-second increments and just see how it goes. Last time I did this with vegetables, it took another minute, but I didn't do a steady minute. I did it for 30 seconds, checked it, because they can get kind of rubbery after a certain point. And that's going to change depending on what vegetable you choose to use. So
Lauren, I've also heard, sorry to interrupt, I've also heard that eggs might explode if you cook them too long in the microwave. So doing it at intervals prevents them from exploding on you. Is that correct?
Yes, the pop. If you put them in there for 2 minutes, you're going to have eggs all over the place. And I think if you're sharing a microwave, nobody's going to appreciate that.
Lauren, the thing we just realized is how important it is to check your cup before you put it in to make sure it's microwave safe, because we had a little spark, but we caught it before anything really bad happened. But yeah, this is action packed.
Oh my. So it sounds like, yes, you do have to have a microwave safe bowl or mug for cooking in the microwave.
With that, I would ask you to consider if you have camping mugs that are metal and ceramic coated, those are not acceptable for your microwave. If you have standard ceramic mugs, you should be fine, but watch it on that first 30 seconds, I guess, if just in case.
Lauren, do you cover the eggs when you put the mug in the microwave with a paper towel or just like this?
That was a great question. I have not been covering them. I haven't had any problems. But I would say feel that out. In this case, where I'm going in 30-second increments, this is after another minute, and I think these eggs are good to go. The vegetables inside are going to be a little al dente. They're not going to be really soft. You're going to have a firm vegetable in there. And so, as I was mentioning, you could serve this with toast or a tortilla, like in this case. Don't mind my shiny tinfoil. I'm going to throw a tortilla down on there. And again, with the versatility, the cool thing about eggs is you can top them with anything. I like to top mine with avocado most of the time. And then even if you didn't cook the vegetables, if you did just plain scrambled eggs, throwing fresh tomatoes on top is a nice way to add some yummy food in there. Another thing I want to show is we didn't go over basic knife skills. When I'm using a knife or keeping it around, we always try to keep it at the front of our cutting board with the blade shaped out. And when you're cutting an avocado, when we were learning in Professor Kubota's 111 class, it's becoming really popular for people to get big cuts across their hand from slapping the seed. So I would suggest don't start out with that. I'm going to try to do my best here and avoid old habits. Professor Kubota, you might have a good insight on how to properly slice an avocado without putting yourself in danger.
I think you did a great job there. So she cut it in half. And when you do, you can just do that on the cutting board and just run the knife around the avocado until you hit the seed and keep going all the way around. And then you can just twist the two halves apart. One will be without the seed and you can just handle that directly. And the other one has the seed in it. So Lauren did a great job of then taking that half with the seed in it and using her paring knife to run around and kind of quarter it and pull that seed off or pull a piece off. So that was a good trick there. The other way to do it is to take your chef's knife, your larger knife, and to just very gently hit the seed with the base of the knife. And once it sticks in there, you can just twist it gently and pull that seed out. It takes a little practice. So I think the way Lauren did it was actually probably a perfect way to start.
And while
So from there,
I wanted to say that I've also cooked a recipe for the eggs in the cup and it's been working. So if you're watching this, there's no trick going on. The recipe works. You should try it for yourself.
you really should.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say you really should try it because I myself just started doing it when we were figuring out these recipes and I was honestly kind of shocked.
For this recipe, are we able to do just egg whites instead of the whole egg?
Yeah, egg whites will work as well. One thing that I would suggest is keep an eye on those for your first time to see how quickly they cook because they might cook a little faster or they probably will.
It also takes more egg whites. So if you wanted to have a serving like this, that would not be 2 egg whites. You'd probably need 4 egg whites, right? Most of the fat in the egg is in the egg yolk. So that's going to give you a lot of calories. And the egg white is loaded with protein. So it is very, very healthy for you, but it's going to be much lower in calories. And it's not going to be as, as generous a serving as this is. So you'd probably want to do like 4 egg whites. If you're an egg white person versus a whole egg person, you can also buy the egg beaters, which are essentially egg whites, and it helps to cut down on cholesterol. They come in the little carton, and it's actually a great option for the dorm room because it's a great way to get your eggs in conveniently, right?
I was inspired by the feta cheese. I went with pepper jack, and it's extra cheesy, so we'll see how this goes. It looks amazing, and I hope it tastes amazing.
That's awesome. It's funny everybody's into feta because I did the same thing. I didn't feel like grating cheese. And at Costco and even Grocery Outlet carries these feta crumbles. I don't know if you can see that very well, but they're really good. And it was like $4 for a big container.
Usually
so for mine, I'm going to do...
Sorry, I was going to say Trader Joe's usually sells feta too pretty inexpensively. You can get a little container of the feta crumbles for like $3 at Trader Joe's.
Perfect. So in this case, I'm just going to meal prep these and save them. And you can see it makes a pretty substantial burrito. You know, that's a full breakfast for me anyway.
So I would just reheat these in the microwave?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
But not in the foil. Not in the foil.
Not in the foil.
You know what I would actually do is wrap them in like a damp paper towel to reheat them. That would keep the paper towel or the tortilla softer. So not wet, just damp. So just put just a little bit of water on your paper towel and then wrap your tortilla, your burrito in that and put it in the microwave. And probably like 45 seconds to a minute, you'd have a nice warm breakfast burrito.
Yeah, I did it this morning with one of my breakfast burritos, and it actually, in my microwave, it was 45 seconds and then another 30 to make it hot in the center. So, and you know, it's even, I mean, you could throw them in the freezer if you were really getting ahead of yourself, you know. We came up with a couple other recipes that were pretty neat, and the next one that I'm going to show, it's our banana bread muffin, and so it's like a cake in a mug. And in this case, I really like this recipe because it has all unprocessed ingredients. So it's literally just a banana, an egg, and in this case, we're using almond flour. So let's see. We're using almond flour. The benefit of using almond flour is you get a lot of vitamin E. It's not a processed grain. It's actually a nut. And so you get vitamin E, fiber, and also if you have an allergy or you're just not enjoying eating flour anymore, it's a good chance. It's a good route to go. And one of my group members also mentioned, Alyssa, that if almond flour can be really expensive, and Trader Joe's and Grocery Outlet are good places to go for that. But you'll see here, this is 1.5 pounds of flour. And even at Grocery Outlet, it was $10. So unless you're going to make this a lot, you might want to go with an oat recipe. And in that case, you can take oats and put it right in your blender or a NutriBullet if you have that, or a smoothie maker. You're just going to want to watch it and keep an eye on it and see that it doesn't get too fine. So for starters with this recipe, I've got some fairly fresh bananas, so I'm going to pinch the bottom and start peeling from there. Usually when I have a green banana, if I try to peel from the top, it's really rubber. Oh, prove me wrong. Usually it's a little rubbery and won't break at the top, but in this case it did. So also, along with not having any refined grain in this recipe, it also doesn't have any refined sugar. The banana works as your sweetener as well as your base. So before I start crushing this banana, I'm going to go ahead and grease a mug because being it is a cakey sort of recipe, it will stick to the inside of a mug. So in my case, I just use butter. You could use any type of cooking spray. canola oil, even olive oil on a rag would work. Just anything to sort of lubricate the mug so that you can get all the cakey substance out of it. Clean off my hands a little bit. Okay, so in this case, with clean hands, you're going to want to break up your banana as much as possible. And you're going to end up smashing it with a fork. Oh, you know what? Sorry, got ahead of myself, guys. I'm going to do that in right in here in a separate bowl. And it takes a little while, so you're going to want to get it to like a peanut buttery, sort of like a warm peanut butter consistency, maybe mayonnaise consistency. This recipe is also versatile like the eggs. You know, you can start with this base, and in this case, we're going to add some chocolate chips to it, but you could add walnuts or berries, almonds, any kind of nut really that you like. It's really preference based. So don't feel sort of married to the recipe as it is shown in our handouts.
Is it better to use like a ripe banana? Like the riper the better for this?
Yeah, it's definitely ideal. I would suggest this is a good recipe if you realize that you haven't eaten a bunch of bananas that you've bought. Because in this case, like I said, it's just taken a little while. If you have less sturdy forks, you might bend some forks on this. But in this case, we're coming up. And it's okay to, like, if it's a little bit lumpy in there, it's not going to hurt anything. It'll still cook all the way through.
I think also maybe the bananas that are a little more older might be sweeter compared to the green bananas that aren't so ready to eat yet.
Yeah, sometimes green bananas have a more bitter taste, as to where, you know, once you start getting spotty or just solid yellow bananas, they have a sweeter taste to them. And that's definitely a benefit to using them. So once you get it to this sort of consistency where it's definitely more of a fluid than a solid, you're going to go ahead and crack one single egg into it. In this, you're just going to keep going until it has a smooth consistency. You'll still have lumps from your bananas, but you don't really want to be able to distinguish bananas from eggs. You want to make sure that you have a solid mixture here.
Can you overmix it, or is that not possible?
You know, in this case, I've gone pretty crazy on it, trying to blend in those banana chunks. In both ways, it seemed to be fine. So it didn't seem to make much of a difference. Like when you're making a standard cake, you don't always want to overmix your batter. In this case, I didn't really have any problems with it.
Lauren, could we use egg whites on this one, or we need a whole egg?
You know, that's a good question, Lena. I haven't really considered it. I know that sometimes, as we were mentioning in the scramble, the fat inside that yolk really plays a role in how these recipes work. So it would be something to play around with, but as I know, this recipe works, and I haven't tried one with just egg whites, but I do appreciate that. I think I'm going to give it a shot next time. So in this recipe in particular, when you're using almond flour, it calls for 3 tablespoons. Now, if you decide to do it with standard flour, that might be adjusted. Do you have any thoughts on that, Professor Kubota?
Sorry. I think oats, if you were going to do oats, I think Alyssa had suggested doing oats, ground oats, and I think it'd probably be about the same as the ground almonds. With flour, pretty similar as well. They're all kind of starchy, but you get a lot of texture from the almonds. Yeah, I think they're all pretty similar. Someone was asking about the egg whites. I think you could do it with egg whites. You might want to put in maybe a teaspoon of oil to compensate for the fat that you're losing, because it's really not getting any other fat in here. So it would be probably really rubbery without some fat. right, that you're getting from those egg yolks.
Thank you for that. I will say this was a fairly dense cake. It does come out hard, and I would assume that is because of the almond flour. It has a little more substance to it. So in this case,
you're not adding any leavening. So you're not adding any baking soda or baking powder that you typically see in like a cake, right? So
yeah,
that could be another reason why it's a little on the denser side, but it sounds like it's actually delicious.
So in this case, I'm gonna throw in some chocolate chips. Just gonna throw in half of them to start to mix in. Once you get that almond flour all the way mixed, you get a really, it does look a little grainy, and that's gonna be normal because the almonds don't quite absorb things the way that wheat flour does. So now I can pour this into my greased mug. And again, this is a really energy dense recipe, meaning that it has a lot of calories for being a small cake. But it is something that it's a little more guilt-free because you're not eating all the refined foods that everybody's worried about. You're eating almonds and bananas. And so I don't think that's something to worry about unless you're on a specialized diet. So in this case, if we're talking about just the general public, it's a nice option for a breakfast, like a nice sweet breakfast. In this case, I'm going to top it, and then I'm going to throw it in my microwave. And in this case, yeah.
White chocolate or other kinds of chocolates in there?
Yeah, I was actually trying to use those peanut butter chips. I really liked those in it. White chocolate, and I'm going to sound like a grocery outlet salesperson here, but Grocery Outlet always has like a really affordable chocolate and white chocolate and peanut butter chip section. Same thing with nuts, because they can be pretty expensive when you're going to like Safeway and just buying a bag of nuts. So in this case, sorry, I just wanted to throw this on for 90 seconds to start. So we're going to do 90 seconds. So what were you going to ask at the end?
I was just going to ask also if you could add nuts in there.
Yeah, so you could do almonds. I think walnuts is what I was going for in the beginning, just because that's the standard for, banana bread. But I think almonds or pecans, really anything you want to do. And it adds, nuts are high in calorie, but they're also high in vitamins. You get fiber. They have a benefit to eating them. And I really would suggest that if you're into it, you could even throw chia or hemp seeds or something on top of it, or even while you're mixing it, it really won't affect the way that it comes out.
Thanks.
I have a banana bread recipe that calls for chocolate chips and coconut in it. The coconut's a nice texture. I think it would go nicely with the almonds and the chocolate here also, just a little sprinkle of coconut.
I agree. I think I only put that in for 60 seconds, so I'm going to add another 30. We kind of experimented with this one because when you pull it out, it also suggests once you do your minute to 90 seconds, I always start out with 90 on mine because I've done this recipe before. From there, I only go in 30-second increments again because it will overcook and or explode all over your microwave. And I'm pretty sure nobody wants that. So once it gets cooked on there, it's a little rough. So in here, you can see the recipe. It looks a little firm. I'm going to grab a fork here and just show you that the texture in this one is still a little soupy in the center. So I'm going to set it back in for another 30 seconds.
Would the toothpick method work here as well, Lauren?
Yeah, that's a great option.
Yeah.
As long as it's not too moist coming out, it's not going to be dry like a standard cake, but it shouldn't be soupy on top. You'll kind of see when I pull it out that it's going to be a little soft, but it's not going to be wet.
So this seems like a much healthier version of mug cake, because I'm sure there's some students who've probably tried some of the mug cake recipes that are out there. Some of them can be loaded in sugar and fat and other ingredients. And so they might be tasty, but they're certainly pack a wallop of calories in them. So this sounds much healthier.
Right, and it's just as, I mean, it's all banana, so it's a very sweet recipe. It's not really, it's not bland at all. You get a lot of texture and you get a lot of sweetness from this. But you're right, when I was looking through this, I saw a ton of chocolatey, super gooey cakes that were amazing. I also came across a banana muffin, or not a banana muffin, a blueberry muffin rather, that looked pretty good. But even that was, you know, I don't know if I could market it as healthy. You know?
Lauren, I know, Lena asked if we could add cocoa powder. We replied yes, but have you tried the recipe with maybe like cocoa powder, or do you think it would possibly change the consistency?
You know, I would suggest trying a little bit at a time. You know, like this is when you're pulling out your half teaspoons and putting it in there, because cocoa powder can be kind of strong, but it's not really going to change the composition too much as long as you don't, you know, get a little excessive with it. And by excessive, I'd say if you're throwing a tablespoon in there, that's probably excessive. It'll also make it really tart depending on your cocoa powder, because a lot of times that's a really high cocoa content and not much sugar in it.
So cocoa can be unsweetened, right? It's unsweetened cocoa powder, which is different from cocoa mix, which you mix into water and drink, right? So you could actually use the cocoa mix because it would have a little bit of milk powder and sugar and the cocoa in it. You could, if that's what you have, you could use it.
That's a really good idea. I would actually challenge anybody to get a little creative and do what they want, and even give us some feedback on that, because you know, we get sort of stuck in our own kitchen ways. And you can see with the scramble, you know, it's like zucchini and squash and tomato, and it's all the variations of the same thing. And that's just my standard. So I would really challenge you with all of these to get creative, because this is just suggested as a base. This isn't the only way you can do it, you know? So for us, it comes out, you know, it'll even lift right out depending on how cooked it is. You know, if you prefer it to be a little gooier, you could even pop it out, you know, and save that. But it is hot, so be careful. So for our third recipe, we were going over breakfast Bianicos. And I don't know if anybody's really familiar with a Bianico, but they're akin to a yogurt parfait, but they're a little more fruit heavy. So in this case, I cut up my vegetables about an hour ago, or my fruit rather, and you'll notice like with bananas and apples, they're gonna start browning on you just out of a natural reaction. So if you're meal prepping something like Bianico with the kinds of fruits that are gonna brown on you, you might want to just throw a little bit of sugar, and maybe if you have a lemon, just squeeze it over the top, and that'll slow your browning reaction. But when you have bananas, I don't know if I would leave those in the fridge more than a day or two, cut like this. So this recipe is, it's gonna go really fast because it's, again, just like a yogurt parfait. And in fact, instead of doing it, I think I was gonna do it in a jar because I might have this in the morning and I wanna save it. Again, talking about fruits that we get stuck on. These are things that I like to eat. Commonly, Bianicos might have all of this, and melon and kiwi and like honeydew or cantaloupe, blueberries even. You can kind of get wild on this recipe. So when you make it, I use Greek yogurt because otherwise you're gonna get over a serving of fruits in this, which is great, but it might leave you hungry. So I use Greek yogurt just for protein. These are like 99 cents at Safeway, the Open Nature brand, so they have a little less sugar in them.
So the Greek yogurt has more protein in it than regular yogurt. Is that what you're saying, Lauren?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I get carried away and forgetting that I'm a nutrition student, and I remember that. So yeah, a lot of times when you get a traditional Bianico, you'll get it with sweet cream. So this is sort of like the nutritionist's take on a Bianico. And if you've never had a traditional one, I suggest you look for them because they're amazing. So I stick the sturdier fruit down in the bottom of it. And I have mason jars, but honestly, even if you had a mug like we were using, you could make these in a mug and then just cover them with tin foil or plastic, a sandwich bag even. And you just layer it in however you want. In this case, I like a lot of different textures in it. So I'm using crispy apples and then just kind of going softer towards the top.
Lauren, I know you mentioned that the traditional Bianicos are made with sweet cream. So are those typically eaten at dessert, or are those like usually a breakfast item?
You know, I get them when I go out to ice cream with my kids. So that's where I see them most popularly, is just at an ice cream shop. They're a sweet treat. And so because I have a major sweet tooth, I'm turning it into breakfast. And again, sweet cream is, Professor Kubota is probably more familiar with how to explain sweet cream, but it's like a really soft yogurt, and it's almost more of a vanilla or custard flavor. It's just sugar milk in my mind. But that's why for this case, I chose Greek vanilla yogurt, but you could honestly grab Yoplait or whatever your favorite yogurt and just throw it over the top, and you'd be better off than going and getting a standard giant Bianico, nutritionally anyway. In this case, I'm only topping it with about half, but you could easily put a whole cup of yogurt in there and make it a meal, because standard yogurt is at least 100 calories for a cup. So if you're, using this in place for breakfast, I would suggest, use your half a cup of fruit. In this case, I used a quarter of apples and a quarter cup of bananas and then 3 strawberries. So there I have a little over my 1 serving of vegetables, and it's giving me, antioxidants, fiber, vitamins and minerals, pretty standard profile, and then a fair amount of protein on top. And then to make it crunch, the recipe, we have standardized recipes that we put out. And for this, I think we did, it was a quarter cup of granola, which isn't that much, but it's pretty heavy on the calories. So I would kind of suggest to take it easy on that, unless you're one of our student athletes, and in that case, go crazy. Because it also does add fiber and sometimes protein, depending on the brand that you buy. In this case, again, this was grocery outlet or sale granola, because it can also be pretty expensive. Let's see, are you getting it right? Yeah, this is a Cliff brand, and it actually comes with 8 grams of protein as well. So if you're using half a cup of yogurt, which has, this one in particular has 15 grams, and then you add some protein on top of it, and that's pretty substantial for breakfast. It's close to what you'd be getting with your eggs. And so here I'm saving it, but again, you could make that in a mug and just top it and throw it in your fridge. And it's also super versatile. Anything that's seasonal, any melon or berry goes pretty well in it. Chocolate chips are a good idea, Alyssa. I like that. You could sweeten it up with anything.
People have been commenting on different suggestions, like using cornflakes and other cereals. Another thing, if you're given some granola bars, like there's oftentimes granola bars at meetings around campus, take an extra one, especially the crunchy granola bars. Just hit them on the counter. Those turn into granola, right? I like those to top things.
That's a great idea, using like a Nature Valley bar You know, and sometimes I'll even just take a Nature Valley bar and use it like a spoon with my yogurt, because it really does bulk up a meal like that.
Ryan was also commenting on dairy-free options. So there's actually dairy-free yogurts available now too. So if you are dairy-free, you know, yogurt is one of those dairy foods that is a little bit lower in lactose because of the fermentation process. It tends to be lower in lactose than milk. So some people that are lactose intolerant can tolerate yogurt. So that's still an option. But for those who are not able to tolerate yogurt, there's other options. So Silk has a soy yogurt. There's Cashewgurt out there, which is made from cashew. There's coconut-based and almond-based yogurts as well. So yeah, you can totally go out and get other yogurts if you can't do milk.
Yeah, I would really, again, just like the other recipes, challenge people to kind of get crazy with it, because these recipes, the main strategy behind this is to just show that it's really what you want to make of it. This is a great starting point to just jump off from here and realize, like, each one of these recipes took no more than, 10 minutes to prepare. And if you get something like, I know the flour, you're going to end up getting almond flour in a bigger bag than you need. You could meal prep a bunch of them, or just, have it there. They're so easy. You just leave the tablespoon in the bag and go for it,
Etienne is asking if these recipes are also gluten-free.
In the case of the cake, it is. Now, there's certain things where, like oats, you can find gluten-free oats. In this case, I had gluten-free oats, but sometimes you have to be careful with that, because the way that they're milled, they might get, if you have somebody who's actually had celiac disease, you're going to want to be careful and make sure that you look for specific gluten-free oat products or granola products.
The tortilla was wheat, but you could put that, you could put the egg into a corn tortilla and then it would be gluten-free. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then in the case of the cake, that was almond flour. So yeah, that one's totally gluten-free. And like anything, when you have a food allergy, you tend to get pretty vigilant about reading your labels. And I would suggest everybody take a little bit of that. We'd be happy to give a tutorial one day on label reading, I'm sure, because sometimes that's a little challenging. And, I went to the internet for these recipes, but it's kind of a convoluted nutrition world out there. So always kind of keep an eye on who's writing your recipes and what you're really looking for and expecting to get out of it.
Thanks so much, Lauren. This all looks like delicious. And I think that what's really smart about it is it's also kind of all grab and go. So like, if you're a student and a resident, you don't have a lot of time on your hands, you can like cook all of this quickly, and then you're going to have like a healthy meal with nutritional value. So before we stop the recording, I just wanted to say that now, because this is recorded, we're going to upload this to our YouTube channel on academic initiatives. So if you're watching this at a later time, don't hesitate to let us know how the recipes went in the comments. We'll be happy to know about this. Before we start the recording, can I ask if Lauren or Professor Kubota or anyone else is attending have a question that's an answer or just a comment? We're good? Well, then I propose you join me into thanking Lauren, that has done an amazing job of cooking those two recipes with no mistake. I cooked the first one with her, and I can tell you that it works. I've eaten the egg and feta and peppers already, so I think I'm good for dinner. So thanks a lot, Lauren.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really glad that you cooked along too, because it really is easy. It's really easy, and you can put your own spin on it. So it's nice to hear that.
I also want to, second, I have already eaten mine as well. It was delicious. And just looking at all this food, it's awesome because they cover all the meals, really. You can, adjust them however you'd like, and you have a full day of meals ahead. So thank you very much. This is great.
I'm glad. One thing I would like to get some feedback on. So when I first heard microwaved eggs, I was a little taken aback by it. The texture is spot on, isn't it? They're really good eggs.
I agree with you. I was a little Well, I've never made microwaved eggs before, but looking at yours, it looks really fluffy. And yeah, I might make some later tonight.
Completely
Awesome.
agree. These eggs are amazing.
That's great to hear.
So for
I wanted
another time, we can show you how to hard boil eggs in the microwave as well, and even poach eggs or make soft cooked eggs in the microwave. So lots of lessons that could go could go on about eggs, love our eggs. You know,
Yeah.
a comment came in that we didn't really address yet on the chat. So let me just quickly go back, and maybe Lauren, you can pick this up. Someone asked, is it healthy to eat eggs every day? Is it okay to eat eggs every day from a nutritional standpoint?
I believe so. I think so. I eat eggs every day. I think it's a really good way, whether you're eating a breakfast burrito or even like late night. It comes with a substantial amount of vitamin A and vitamin D, which are kind of hard to find out there, especially if you have a specialty diet. Those aren't as prevalent as we'd like to believe that they are. So being that they come with that, I kind of push them a little bit, and they're also good on protein, especially if you're somebody who doesn't eat meat. It's a great way to sort of pick up those vitamins and pick up that protein. So yeah, if you're into eggs, by all means, go for it, unless your doctor's telling you different.
Thanks, I will.
And even then, maybe a dietitian.
Thank you again, Lauren and Jamie, for just giving us all these tips. And also, I love how quick those recipes were, and that you can use all your leftovers if you want to make a quick meal.